This series is for you, my loves. I finally sat down, I gathered all the materials I needed to create ASTROBABES. And we're gonna begin with amyadams. Let me know what other people you would like me to feature. I'm Lexi, your local lightworker. I'm a tarot reader and an astrologer. Welcome to ASTROBABES, the series in which I dissect the birth chart of famous female celebrities for your viewing pleasure. This is the counterpart to my other series called Astrohunks, where I look at male celebrities. So you guys wrote to me and demanded that I create the female counterpart. And yes, this has been something that I've been brewing on for a long time. The first 3 episodes are already planned. I have a couple of really interesting actresses coming your way. I'm gonna begin with amyadams, my all-time favorite Hollywood actress at the moment, and then we're going to take it from there, and I will do my best to reply to your recommendations and create videos with famous astrobabes that you would find equally interesting to watch. Okay, now that all that planning is out of the way, let's talk about Amy. She is such an amazing actress. Versatility is the name of the game, and there is an astrological reason for why she is so adaptable. She can play parts that showcase the darker aspects of human nature while simultaneously playing in fairy tale-like parts. She is absolutely amazing. I find her sense of self, her poise, her patience, and especially her compassionate delivery in her movies the most attractive feature of Amy's performance. You guys might have known her from movies such as Enchanted. She also played in Nocturnal Animals. Maybe you know her as well from the film that got her an Academy Award nomination, Junebug. More recently, she appeared on Netflix in something called Hillbilly Elegy, a movie that completely shocked me when I saw it because both her and Glenn Close are completely unrecognizable. They just melt into their roles, and it's such a fantastic acting duo. I never thought that a movie about aliens can be so touching, so spiritual, and so mind-bending. You might know her from Arrival, where she played alongside Jeremy Renner. In addition, I also loved her, absolutely loved her, as she explored the dark side of her connection to her mother and her sister in a miniseries called Sharp Objects. I had the pleasure of reading the book after I watched the miniseries, and I can tell you guys, both the book and the movie are exceptional. I personally can tell you that as a person that grew up with a very difficult mother and a very complicated connection with my sister, this movie struck a really deep chord inside of me. And I wrote about my fatal attraction to Venus Obscura, dark female characters portrayed on screen, on my website, thespiritualsocial.com. So make sure that you visit that and maybe have a look at the article I wrote a while ago, I think 1 or 2 years back. You might also know Amy from Julie and Julia, where she starred alongside Meryl Streep. Interestingly enough, she shares a really important placement with Meryl Streep, very similar to her in the birth chart. They both have a Saturn in the 2nd house. Keep in mind, guys, that we could talk a whole week about a person's birth chart, but for the sake of the length of this clip, I don't want to keep you bored. I want to entertain you. I want to inform you. I want you to get into astrology. For the sake of this clip, I'm only going to focus on the 5 markers in Amy's birth chart, but keep in mind, there are many more that we could unpack. Before I dive into these markers, let's have a look at her birth chart. Okay, to begin with, Amy's 3 significant markers, or the big 3, as some people like to call them in astrology, are the fact that she is a Sun in Leo, Ascendant in Gemini, and also she's a Moon in Virgo. I don't want to focus necessarily on the combination of those elements and planets and positions in her chart, although they are significant, and I will return to her Sun and the cluster of planets that is surrounding her Sun towards the end of this clip. But I do want to focus on her Ascendant in Gemini. It is especially significant because it has a really important karmic marker attached to it. If you've been following me on my channel, you know that I like to place an emphasis on the South Node of the Moon and the North Node of the Moon. These are 2 karmic markers that show in an individual's chart what they came from a past lifetime kind of burdened with in this incarnation, and what their soul is uncomfortably growing towards, what their destiny is. Amy has her South Node in Gemini conjunct her Ascendant, and then she also has her North Node in Sagittarius in the 7th house conjunct Neptune. Now, Neptune plays a really big part in the birth charts of actors. Neptune represents the film world. It represents the silver screen. It is all about the illusions we create, the ways in which we like to escape. There is something about seeing other people's dramas projected onto a silver screen that kind of alleviates some of our own burdens. It gets us to think about the meaning of life. It gets us to empathize with some characters. And Neptune is all about this wonderful energy of catharsis, as the Greeks used to call it. Experiencing some sort of emotional discharge as you witness another person's experience mirrored before your eyes through the realm of a theater play or a movie. Coming back to Amy, what does it mean if she has her North Node in Sagittarius conjunct Neptune? Well, she is made for the camera. She is made to become an actor. And actually, she might find this entire process incredibly uncomfortable. Her soul is telling her, this is what you need to do. But her comfort zone is her South Node in Gemini, conjunct the Ascendant. Her South Node is all about tending to the little things, Gemini energy. So this is about local everyday communications, your neighborhood, your relationship to your neighbors, having that kind of boy next door and girl next door type of personality, being helpful, being lighthearted, being chatty. Gemini energy is all about the surface and the breadth of information that they can amass. Geminis are incredible thinkers. They point out the obvious like no one else. They're able to quickly analyze a situation for what it is up front. But at the same time, they are not ones to spend a lot of time mulling over the same kind of information because they generally just get bored. In Amy's chart, that she is a person that finds it more natural to talk about lighthearted subjects. She enjoys information. She might enjoy consuming news. She's a person that I think is really giving her best when she reads a script, but might struggle a little bit to put it into action because her growth zone is Sagittarius. And where Gemini is a lot about the mind, and some astrologers call this the lower mind, so the everyday details, the everyday plans, the everyday errands that one needs to run to keep your daily routine in check, Gemini. Sagittarius is about the cosmic mind. It's about philosophy. It's about exploration, broadening your perspective, go big or go home. And also Sagittarius is about intensity of feeling that inner fire, having a strong conviction and then going for it. Sagittarians are very dynamic, active, athletic. So I think that Amy's destiny is struggling a little bit based on these placements that I see in her chart between being an overthinker and actually choosing the right time to act. She could also be naturally more pessimistic, and she needs to develop a more broad-minded perspective. She needs to become more focused on international affairs, relating to people from different cultures. She needs to take a global perspective into account. She could generally be afraid of success. So this is a really interesting aspect with a North Node in Sagittarius. It's actually a blessing to have a North Node in Sagittarius. The problem here with this placement is that you're so accustomed to little things, miniature things, the local, the familiar, and you might have a rather pessimistic mindset that you constantly need to push yourself to think bigger, to want better, to want more for yourself, to include more in your life, to be able to handle more prosperity, right? Sagittarius is the great attractor. It is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the great protector, the great attractor. It is a planet of scale, big scale, and it is a lot about the law of prosperity, abundance, and also the law of attraction. I am that thing which I want to embody, which I want to attract. And another thing in her chart makes me refer to this It's the placement of her Saturn in the second house, which shows quite a traditionalistic person, and it also shows a person that has a little bit of a lack mentality, is born with a lack mentality when it comes to resources. I'll get to that in a second, but one final thing I need to add to this first point in her chart is that there is something special here about people that have their South Node conjunct the Ascendant. Remember when I first was trying to understand what does this mean, I was looking at the birth chart of famous celebrities, and I found out that one of my idols, Virginia Woolf, who is a Sun in Aquarius, she also had this conjunct her Ascendant. So I found out that people that have the South Node conjunct the Ascendant are very ghost-like. They're very much like, they seem to be caught in between two worlds, the immaterial world, the world beyond the veil, the spiritual world, and the 3D reality. There is something fairy-like about them. Even the way that their skin looks like, it's porous, it's vulnerable, it's glowing. You tend to disappear into the background. So people that naturally have a South Node conjunct the Ascendant are very soft-spoken. They find it very difficult to be incarnate, to be physical, to be material, because of the fact that past life legacy keeps pulling them, drawing them towards the spiritual aspect of their nature. So they're very ghost-like. There is something incredibly ethereal about individuals that have their South Node conjunct the Ascendant. So if you have this placement in your chart, now you know why you tend to blend into your environment, why it's hard for you to sometimes stick out of a crowd and to have a very physical embodiment in this reality. It is related to this past life karma that just lingers in the most visible part of your chart, your rising. The second most significant marker in Amy Adams's chart is her Saturn in Cancer in the second house. So what is Saturn? Saturn is about depleting energy. It's draining the energy wherever you find it in your chart. It's about limits, obstacles, karma. You have to put a lot of work to unlock the energy of that specific house or planet that your Saturn might be conjunct. So where we have Saturn is where our deepest wound lies. It's where we have to put in a lot of effort to unlock the energy of that house. But by gosh, if we actually put in the effort, there is like a constantly replenishing fountain of blessings and resources that is coming our way. In spite of all the challenges, in spite of all the karmic tests, Saturn gives you tangible rewards for all the work you're putting in. Now, Saturn in the second house means a lack of material resources. It means problems with the body. Feeling like your body is heavy, feeling like you have to put in a lot of effort to work out. It's more difficult for you to work out than for other people. Saturn in the second house also deals with food. When you have Saturn in the second house, you're born in an environment where either the mother doesn't cook, or you're born in a very poor country, you're born in a lower class or a working class. You have to really struggle to get access to certain resources. So there is something here about a lack of nourishment, both physically from the mother. The mother might have refused to feed you. She wasn't able to feed you. You were separated from her at an early age. Something might have happened there with your health and your body that kept your mother from giving you the proper nourishment. And also a lack of nourishment and material resources in the environment in which you grew up. There is something here with the father as well. The father was blocked from being a proper provider, or there is a distancing from the father as well. So in turn, the person that has Saturn in the second house must learn to nourish themselves, to mother themselves, and they do so by embodying this very strong paternalistic energy. And this happens whether you're a man or a woman. So people with Saturn in the second house, they learn that they need to work, and they need to work really hard. It builds this sense of stoicism you can do with less food. It shows a person that might not have nourished herself properly or was deprived of food as she was growing up. It shows an individual that has this need to be mothered, and because they cannot get it from their own parents, they become that energy. So if you can see very clearly in Amy's energy and in the choices of roles that she has, she chooses these roles where she's playing out difficult mother-daughter dynamics, or there is a separation from a child, the death of a child, like she played in the beautiful role in Arrival. And if you actually look at Amy's interviews, she does mention that some of the hardest things in her life are her role as a mother, actually, and being close to her family. It's quite difficult for her, in spite of the fact that she loves her child and she has a daughter. It's quite difficult for her to embody that role compared to her role as an actress. So I think that that's such an honest way of portraying this Saturn and Cancer in the second house. She also became a mother later on in life than other people. So Saturn again delays the process of settling down and having a family. Her role as a mother is not something that she takes lightly or for granted. Saturn shows a very serious mother, a mother that's very responsible, a mother that actually puts in a lot of effort and hard work to be there, to be present for her child, a mother that kind of behaves like a father. So it's like she might supply the provider role in her family. I mean, all in all, this is quite good. I'm not judging, who am I to judge? But I can see astrologically that a lot of aspects surrounding the effort of being a mother, the effort of being nourished, that she has in her own birth chart is playing so beautifully in the choice of roles that she has selected throughout her career. Now, the third significant aspect in Amy's chart is her Jupiter placement. And this is such a cool thing because I just noticed that Amy is having, at the moment, this year, her Jupiter return. So her natal Jupiter, I can see it from her chart, is in the sign of Pisces, and it is placed in the 11th house, the house of networking, the house of your vocation, the house of the group of co-workers that you have, and the ways in which your co-workers and your social group help you achieve your vocational path. So she is actually quite supported by the group of actors, directors, script writers, the group of people in the filming industry, her filming crew. She is strongly supported by them and she is made happy by them. There's a sense of kindness, forgiveness, acceptance, and creativity going on between her and the people that she's working with. Because whatever planets we have in the 11th house, they actively support the planets of our midheaven, the planets in the 10th house. So the midheaven is just the point that crosses the 10th house, and the 10th house actually shows our public role, our legacy, our professional path. And it's really interesting because she has a fascinating placement in the 10th house, which I'll get to in a second. But the important part, and what I want to really focus on, is the fact that she's having Jupiter, the planet that expands everything, in the sign of Pisces, the planet that doesn't know any boundaries and is incredibly Neptunian, it's incredibly escapist, imaginative, likes to daydream a lot. This is the planet of artists and artistic work in general. In the house of the network, the social groups, the 11th house is also the house of the World Wide Web. It is the house naturally ruled by Uranus, so Aquarius energy. It is a very progressive, forward-thinking energy. So I see that she has a humanitarian heart. I see that she's made happy by helping other people. She's quite idealistic and she's strongly supported by people around her. And indeed, there have been some people in the community that have been saying how unjust it is that Amy hasn't yet won an Academy Award for her performances in a variety of different movies. But this is coming, guys. It's just that Saturn in the second house is delaying the material awards and achievements that she gets to have through her work. So in spite of the fact that she's a really good actress, that she's putting a lot of effort in her work, the rewards for all that work will come later on in her career. And I do think that the fact that she's having Jupiter in the 11th house, this means that her group of friends, the group of people that she works with, will support her actively in the achievement of her dream. So with the fact that she's having her Jupiter return right now, I think this is a year of great blessings for her. I think it is somehow meant to be that I'm creating this video in which I'm actually fangirling about her qualities, because she can do no wrong in my eyes. Okay, guys? No, she can do no wrong. I think it's somehow meant to be. I'm also a Pisces. I'm a Pisces sun. So I think we would get along quite well, like a house on fire, because Sun-Jupiter placements show very good friendships, people that just meet and they support each other's goals and they make each other happy. So I'm really thrilled to see this Jupiter placement in her chart. Now, the fact that Jupiter is retrograde tells me a really important thing. It tells me that the energy of good luck and blessings comes from within. It comes from her heart. She's a highly spiritual being. This placement in combination with the South Node on her ascendant, and I can see that Amy has a very rich inner world, and I think that her path towards becoming North Node in Sagittarius, that is her destiny, will be for her to just bring out more and more of this rich inner world that she carries within. I actually think that she might start directing at a later point in her life, and I think that point is actually coming quite soon. I wouldn't put it past her around her second Saturn return, around the age of 55 towards 57. You might actually see a movie that has the logo directed by Amy Adams, and I would be super thrilled if she were to do that. So if you have this placement in your chart as well, if you have Jupiter retrograde, you need to actually take things from within you and express them without, in order to create more abundance, good luck, and all sorts of wonderful things towards you. And the way that she's able to actually attract good luck in her life is by being compassionate. Pisces, right? By being kind, forgiving, accepting. So by taking the perspective of the underdog, she's actually working so beautifully with the energy of Jupiter retrograde in Pisces. The fourth significant placement in Amy's chart is the asteroid Lilith, and this asteroid is in Aquarius. Now, for the untrained astrologer's mind, you wouldn't be able to actually focus on this placement. You would just discard it and put it to the side. But I think this is really significant. I love to work with two asteroids in my astrological interpretations. I like to look at the position of Chiron, the wounded healer archetype, and Lilith, the wild feminine archetype, the first wife of Adam, the one that has been embraced by many feminist movements, that shows a woman's capacity to truly function independently in a continuously patriarchal society. So if I see that she has Lilith in Aquarius, a very rebellious, innovative, progressive sign, I am tempted to say that she is carving at the moment a career where she tends to embody the role of women that have fallen on their luck, women that can be incredibly sexy and spicy, but also women that deal with a lot of infringements that were brought upon their freedom due to their relationships with the men in their life. I'm not talking about Amy's energy specifically, but I am talking about the fact that she chooses these roles of women that tend to be somehow cast aside. They tend to be called pariahs, and sometimes these women are actually falling into these places because they have been abused or traumatized, or their capacity to be themselves was in some way limited. So Lilith, wild feminine energy, sits right on top of the 10th house. She did say that she needed some therapy in order to embody or feel comfortable embodying and portraying this individual's darker aspects, because she does play a person that is an alcoholic who cuts herself. I think I'm in Hillbilly Elegy. She also plays a woman that is addicted to hard drugs and is also on the brink of kind of dissolving her family, and especially her relationship with her son. And the movie is interesting because it's a semi-autobiography of Ron Howard's life. Ron Howard, the famous Hollywood director. Aquarius energy and Uranus in general is the energy of the unknown. It is the energy of the X-Files. So I can see it very clearly how even her choice in the movie in Arrival is influenced by the position of an Aquarius in her 10th house. And it's interesting at the moment because she has Saturn currently in Aquarius transiting over this house. So I think that a lot of the choices that she has been making in her career are coming up to be scrutinized. So I would say that at the end of this transit of Saturn in Aquarius going across her 10th house, she will get some sort of reward, some sort of acclaim for the choices she has made so far in her career. And finally, the 5th placement in her chart, and possibly the one I should have started with, but I kept the best for last. Okay, all jokes aside, what I want to talk to you here today is about her Sun in Leo conjunct Mercury conjunct Venus. So naturally beautiful, naturally attractive. She has this gorgeous strawberry blonde hair. In some roles it looks darker and actually more fiery. In other roles it looks more blondish and nonetheless quite curly and voluminous. She has this beautiful hair that stands out, and she has this very light energy about her. Leo suns are naturally very charming, charismatic, protective, loyal, a little bit on the traditionalist side, but they just radiate light around them. And the interesting part is that she's not as standoffish as other Leos that you might be familiar with. Let's think, for example, of Jennifer Lopez, who's very spicy and very hot, or for example, Charlize Theron, who's obviously ultra sexy, and she also comes across a bit more authoritarian, mostly because she has such a strong Pluto and Virgo in the first house. But Amy has a softer glow. She seems more approachable, more friendly. She doesn't seem so in your face. On the contrary, I think that she comes across as quite sensitive, and I'm sure that a lot of people throughout her career have told her to be more loud or speak up or, you know, be a bit more passionate about things. Well, it's because she has her Sun in Leo in the 4th house and Venus there as well, and also Mercury. So this means that she's highly private. You don't really know that many details about her childhood. You don't really know that many details about her relationship with her husband or her daughter. You only know what she chooses to give you. She's not the one to have paparazzi, destroying her door. She's not involved in can-can or, illicit love affairs that just spice up her image. No. She's very settled. Image looks quite polished, and I can see it very strongly here with Venus in the 4th house. Again, another placement that we share in common. No wonder I like her so much, because she's telling me so much about myself. Venus in the 4th house actually says that this is an individual that loves to be at home. She likes the privacy of home, the peace and quiet of home. She is quite domestic. So I see it strongly here with Venus in the 4th house, Saturn in the 2nd house. She yearns to actually have a lot of beautiful things in her home. She yearns for stability. But it could be that Saturn in the 2nd house has been dealing her a couple of tough blows in her life regarding the stability that she's trying to create. Nonetheless, she has the spiritual resources, and the older that she will grow, the more resources she will attain, and the more awards she will win, and the more her consciousness will expand to this mindset of prosperity, the mindset of plenty and abundance. This is because her North Node in Sagittarius in the 7th house conjunct Neptune are in a highly harmonious relationship with her Leo, Venus, and Mercury cluster of planets in the 4th house. So I think that she's actually happily married. I do think that she tends to idealize her husband, and she generally tends to idealize the people in her life with Neptune in the 7th house, because wherever we have Neptune, we tend to see things with rosy colored glasses. So I'm getting a sense that she can be a person that, in spite of the fact that she's a Leo and that, she can be quite proud, and that she might think that she's really good at what she's doing. Leos have that sense of, I am skilled, I can do it. If I put my mind to it, I can achieve whatever I set out to do. And that's why we love them, because of their confidence. But with Amy, there's a different story, because I think this confidence is something that she had to work on. With Saturn in the 2nd house and Neptune in the 7th, I think she tends to idealize other people, and she tends to put herself down. She might have struggled with some low self-esteem issues throughout her career, and she might feel the need to constantly perfect how she looks, how she talks, the way in which she delivers her lines, the tempo that she has, the rhythm that she, has when she delivers her speeches, her lines, her public appearances as well. So there is a feeling here that she needs to put a lot of work and control regarding her own self, but she might actually consider that everyone else around her is so amazing and so good at everything. Although we're coming back to this really interesting cluster of planets in the 4th house, I think that gradually she's learning to trust herself more, potentially through disappointments in her personal connections, because Neptune in the 7th house is also talking about some rude awakenings, some rude disappointments, and potentially some betrayals in her personal connections that are linked to her Saturn in the 2nd house karma. And these rude awakenings are making her trust her own abilities, because I see here that close to this cluster of planets in Leo, we also have her Mars in Virgo conjunct her moon, and very close to these sits her Pluto in Libra, and loosely conjunct her Pluto in Libra is her Uranus in Libra. Now, the interesting thing is that with Moon conjunct Mars in Virgo, she is a person that can actually erupt emotionally. She has these moments when I guess she can be incredibly passionate, and she can be quite fearsome, quite intimidating. I think that this is especially so when she is engaged in a skill, when she is performing, when she is together with her daughter or playing with other children, or when she is away on leisures, and even during romantic conquests. I have a feeling that she's a person that tends to initiate romantic interactions. She might have even been the one that chased her current husband. With Mars in the 5th house, this shows an individual that has a lot of romantic stamina, an individual that is quite competitive when it comes to her performing skills. Sensitive planet of the moon is touched by Mars, then this shows that it is being infused with a very aggressive masculine energy. At the same time, the higher vibration of this moon conjunct Mars in Virgo talks about constantly wanting to perfect yourself as an actor, constantly wanting to work on your craft. And the 5th house is the house of performance. So it's like she was made to be ambitious towards performing in front of other people. She was made to really be driven by her acting skills. One final thing I need to say, again, this is something I share with her in common. The fact that she has a lot of her personal planets and even some of the outer planets concentrated in the lower part of her chart. So the part that is divided by the rising, the sign that pierces the ascendant and the descendant. So the fact that she has all these planets underneath the horizon talks about a person with a very rich internal world. And it talks about the fact that whatever she wants to achieve in this incarnation, she has to bring out of herself. She already has all of these influences locked within her mind, her body, her spirit, her emotionality. All she needs to do is take action and actually bring them forth. So I see that the way that she's able to do so is by having faith and by idealizing other people, because the planets that are out of the horizon are Jupiter in Pisces retrograde, and also Neptune in Sagittarius conjunct the North Node. Having read her birth chart, I can see so clearly how much effort she's putting into everything she has created in her life. And I feel that a part of her might even say, I'm not there yet. I still need to be acknowledged by the group of actors, by the social environment in which I exist. And I really hope that this year she's gonna get a boon of luck and more acknowledgement for the wonderful acting job she's been doing so far. She's one of my favorites for all of these beautiful reasons. Let me know down in the comments, do you have any placements that resonate strongly with Amy's energy? Do you like her? Do you dislike her? What was your first impression of her? What do you think is her most memorable role? What other people you would like me to focus on and do an Astro Babes analysis on? Okay, this is what I had for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to see you on the next episode of Astro Babes.